workshops or conferences and things like that, is that somebody always asks the question about if there was one management technique that you felt would most benefit the horses that could be easily implemented by people. That I've heard answers in the past from different people saying, don't stable your horses. Horses that are out all the time have, and I suppose that's conditions-wise as well, because things are being asked to more climates, that's beneficial. That soaking hay is something that can be easily done that's across the board beneficial. I'm wondering if you guys have come across something in just a basic management technique that you found is most beneficial.
I mean, I know for sure this whole discussion about turning the horses out, I mean, where I come from in Denmark, now we're going towards summer now, which is good because we've had a winter. This winter wasn't particularly hard on us, but sometimes when we have like really bad winters, I mean, the horses are stable for very, very long time and many, many hours, and we tend to see problems, the summer after when we start turning them out and the competition gets busier. We see like a tendency to have more injuries the following summer. Another thing is that I think is really, really important also now that we in an arena like this with really, really nice and good footing. It's important to realize that this footing is made for competition and training, kind of, and that doesn't mean that this is good for the horse to go on a surface like this on an everyday basis. Not at all. One of the things that I learned after the Olympics in London, I mean, everything about the Olympics in London was really good. We were really happy. But what interesting was that the whole ground in the Greenwich Park where we had the showgrounds was made out of this really nice surface, this fiber-tex sand. And what we saw was that after 2 weeks in that environment, our horses actually started to get tired in sort of a way that we were not used to. And we found that very interesting. And we actually did quite a lot of research also when there is a Swedish researcher doing a lot of on surface now. He's traveling around to all big competitions in Europe and testing the surface. But what we found was that it's extremely important also for competition horses that they get to go on different kind of surfaces. And that should not be a part of our training to ride them and train them on different surfaces. That doesn't mean that you have to go out and canter on asphalt tomorrow, because if your horse is not used to it, that would be a nightmare. But it's really, really important for the horses to sort of get used to different surfaces all the time. It's all this about the perception or proprioception, this sense, the horse's sense for how he reacts to the surface. I find that really, really important in training and also in treatment.
My next lead on to that, I'm sure everyone's aware that the Swedish show jumpers showed up barefoot, right? And started this whole question over like, is a horse better barefoot? And then a lot of the counters are arguing from that those horses are being only worked on perfect surfaces all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we in Australia we don't have access to that. I mean, our horses go whatever kind we have the ability to fence. So, how does that? I mean, I understand the articulation of joints, but being on sloped surfaces, getting your bodies to understand where they are in time and space, and the fatigue is very interesting to me to hear though, where the differences in surfaces are keeping them a bit fresher and more natural surfaces that are benefiting them. But what do you say about, I guess, supporting hooves, or is that a whole other discussion that we don't have time to do today?
No. Can I ask in relation to that question too? Because that was going to be my question. Sorry, was exactly that. So there has been a lot of discussion, as you say, about barefoot and But there has also, like Mark Durham and a number of farriers have put up about plantar collar support with horses that are being worked in shoes. And as a vet, and seeing, I guess, a lot of foot problems, leg problems, is collar support now something also for horses are sure that we should be doing to stop, I guess, hoof issues, tendon issues? Is that something that you would also recommend?
I think you might, Mike, if you think differently. I mean, for me, it hasn't really changed. I mean, this thing about the horses, we see a lot of problems with the hooves, shoeing. I mean, barefoot or not, it always turns into kind of a religious discussion. I mean, and you had a good point. I mean, some of these famous show jumpers, it's kind of easy for them, but not all horses will adapt to that, will perform well without shoes, for sure not. So it's a little bit like an individual thing. I mean, nowadays I think there's a tendency for us to think, oh, it's in the back, it's sacroiliac joint, what do I know, or the shoulder or whatever. And I think most of us vets, we still look at the hooves and like, no, it's something down there in there. But it's kind of more fashionable to have something in the back and injections, what do I know. And we're still, talking about shoeing. And I think for the horses, it's a huge issue still. I mean, nowadays, luckily, we have so much more we can do, different shoes and different techniques, and I think again the most important thing is it's very individual from horse to horse how he reacts, how he will adapt. I mean, I also had one of my clients was Natalie Susanne Wittgenstein, who was on our team, and for years we had her horse. It has shoes on all summer and then the whole winter period without shoes. And that worked well for him. I mean, okay, the trot was not really, at the end of the winter, it was terrible. He was tiptoeing like, I don't know. But that worked for him, for that horse in particular. So, and that is for me as a vet, I really try to, they are individuals, horses. We cannot say this works for all. So because one successful jumping rider is doing it barefoot with his horse, that doesn't mean that we can all do the same.
I might as well back up just a little bit. You asked about footing, and I have some clients who have way too much money and have perfect footing everywhere. What we found after they put in perfect footing everywhere is those horses did extremely well on that perfect footing. And the second they went to any competition, let's face it, no competition has perfect footing. This is too hard. Okay, we can change something, but they had perfect footing at home. When they went to a competition, they were all lame every time, okay? Horses need good footing, bad footing, everything in between. They need to have it change. If you do the same thing all the time, they will be perfect on that same thing. The second you change it, if they're not used to it, you're done. So, as far as barefoot, or do you need core pressure, do you need all these things? It depends what your horse is doing. If your horse is out in a pasture where they can get core pressure from the grass and they're never being asked to do anything which might chip them or break them or anything, barefoot's perfect. But I can tell you the horses that are feral out in the desert and they're all barefoot, they are lame as a duck, okay? Yes, they're barefoot, but not a single one of them could trot 10 feet without limping. If you ask a horse to do more than they are used to doing, then they have to have protection of some kind. If you're always on perfect footing, you don't need shoes. You fix the footing, not the shoe. If you ever go on footing that is not perfect, you probably need protection of some kind. Every horse is different, but don't assume this horse did great barefoot, therefore I'm going to do it on mine. No, that usually won't work. It's called a fad. And as veterinarians, we see fads come and go all the time. And what it comes down to is do what's right for your horse. And I don't mean your herd, I mean each individual horse. You may have some barefoot behind, you may have some barefoot all around. You may have some with glue-ons, you may have some with metal shoes. Do what's right for each horse.
Following on from that, do you believe in what some people do here, which is to x-ray once a year with your farrier to check their angles of the feet? Do you think that's beneficial?
Wow. She was asking, should we x-ray the horse's hooves every year to be sure that you have the right angle?
Oh, we earn a lot more money on that one. Right?
Oh, a fabulous practice builder.
Every 3 months. No.
Yeah. From a veterinarian standpoint, you must do it monthly now. Okay, we're good. Next. To be honest, I have not heard of that before. I can tell you that there are an awful lot of veterinarians and shoers who don't need x-rays to tell you what's going on. If it's working, you probably should keep doing it. If it's not working, you probably should quit doing it. But as far as x-raying, I mean...
No, I agree. I mean, we have some farriers, they will recommend their clients to go and get the horses x-rayed. And I mean, and yes, if you for some reason have some issues, broken toe axis, what do I know? I mean, it might be a good idea because once in a while you will have a horse, you know, where it might look really almost perfect, the shoeing, and then when you take an x-ray, okay, maybe, I mean, it's not in the perfect ankle, what do I know? But only if you have issues. I mean, that's in my book.
In laminitis horses do it all the time.
Yeah.
But for your standard horse, probably not. If there was one thing in management that you could do for your horse, what is it? And my answer is a little different than anybody else's. My answer is get to know your horse. Your horse. Not all horses, your horse. When do they sleep? What do they like? What do they not like? I mention sleep a lot because I've been doing a lot of studies with various groups the last few years, and we're finding out that the average show horse does not get adequate sleep. They might get enough hours, but they don't get restful sleep. And we started with that, and we said, well, why not? And what we found out was they don't feel safe. And if you think about it, that is scary. Can you imagine not feeling safe enough to sleep deeply? And many, many, many show horses never feel safe enough to fall asleep fully. What are the ramifications? Is
that at a competition or
anytime.
also at home?
Also at home. Keep in mind this was primarily done with show jumpers, but kind of relates to most of the management that we do. What are the ramifications of not sleeping well? Think about it. If you don't sleep for a few days, you're nice and happy, right? You can learn things. When somebody asks you to do something, you say, gee, I'd love to. Okay? Just imagine being out here, you haven't slept for 3 days, and somebody's saying, piaf, piaf, and you're going, Sleep matters to horses, too. So what you want to do is figure out why your horse does sleep well or doesn't sleep well. You've all seen pictures of horses out in the field where two of them are flat out and everybody's up. Those two trust the rest of the herd to alert them before a cat comes or something to kill them. Horses only sleep flat out when they feel comfortable. You can also see one that's just flat out on the floor in the middle of an arena and everything going on around them. Some horses don't care, they're fine. Other horses are stressed and won't sleep unless they feel very safe. And those horses need something. They may need another horse. They may need music playing. They may need, the things they may need are quite long. But if you have a horse that isn't sleeping well, that may be why you're not able to train it well. You have to look at the whole horse, not just what does my trainer say I should do in the arena. There's a lot more to horse management than that. So, did you?
How do you find out how your horse sleeps?
How do you find out how your horse sleeps? The best way is go down there late at night, middle of the night, in the morning. People who are really weird and want to know, like me, do things like that. We get up in the middle of the night and go down and look. What are they doing? What's really funny is you go down there and you find out all your horses are talking with each other at 2 in the morning. Must be a good time to kibitz about each other. But the real way now is you can buy a camera for $20 and you put it in the barn and it's got a microphone and you can look at it on your phone. That's really cool because you wake up in the middle of the night, you go, what's going on there? See what your horse is doing. You want to hear what your horse hears. You need a camera with a microphone. And find out what's going on. Some barns are, you can't do this if it's a great big pasture, but if the horse is in a barn, many horses have never been with other horses their entire life. As soon as they were weaned, they were put in their own stall. Horses aren't meant to be by themselves. The first thing when you get two horses who have been out in a field do is they rub each other's back. But if they've never been with another horse, they have no idea what that horse is doing. So management of the life of the horse is very important.